You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
Oh my.
Oh my.
We're live. We're doing it. It's the Meta Show. Here we are. Back at it again. Okay.
I guess.
Lots of resubs already. I see. Let's make sure that we're doing shout outs appropriately. Swimming the Carcass, Beth Hall. I don't know how to pronounce it. Beth Hall? Anominate? Sharp Hall?
Yeah, Beth Hall.
Hey. Okay, so yeah, we have a lot to go over here. We have a bunch of guests here this week because obviously CCP has been talking lots of mad shit about nullsec and doing lots of dumb stuff like the blackout. We were talking last week about the data that has been produced by a number of people, and we also have Tuzzy as a guest here. Tuzzy, of course, has been producing the weekly reports of the impact of the blackout on the player base of EVE Online and what can we see in the facts and in the data. We have Anominate and Vili just back from Iceland, and we also have Haiwanto, hopefully to throw a chair at somebody Jerry Springer style to lighten things up a little bit. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe Hai and I will have a slap fight about something trivial to entertain everyone.
You want to go? Hi, you want to go? You want to go? You want to fight? Hi.
Let's fight. In kind of a dark blackout joke time. Indie Section 8, Brandy Love 23, Bim 1111, and Jack Lee. All right. So yeah, how do we want to start this?
I'm going to list all the topics that we could potentially see today on the show, and I guarantee you we ain't going to get to many of them. So we got the Summit people home. We're going to ask them how that went. We have the MER released. As soon as the MER released, they also released a bot purge numbers. The September release, which is literally in 3 days with the no sino login numbers, and I believe EVE is back in the teens for the first time in a long time. Bots, lol bots. That's literally the title of that section. We have bots can stop cloaky camping. We found this out this week, and that's actually big news, and I want to talk about that probably right away. Kill data has been released by more people. More people are starting to see this meta show doing kill data and graphs and charts, and now all of EVE seems to want to contribute, and there was another one that was released recently, and then there's, of course, CCP, please, because what the heck? All right, so, yeah, lots of stuff, and I want to start by pressing a button. Okay, our top story changed, and our CSM are here. I didn't even know they were home yet. I didn't even think to invite them. All of a sudden, it was like Anonymous talking, Merkel-chan's around, and Vili's like, I'll come on the show, and I'm like, oh my god, they're home. So, hi guys, how's it going?
Yeah, let's hand it to one of the CSMs first. Whichever one of you wants to. We're in sort of an awkward position because obviously we want to collectively, us and everybody who's watching wants to know everything, and as usual, there's an NDA, so there's only so much stuff you can tell us, and then everyone will read the tea leaves and try to interpret or misinterpret whatever you have to say. Yeah. So I don't know, Vili, nominate which one of you guys wants to go first. Go now.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So as usual, it's been a long week. I'm not really, this has been sort of a weird summit because I think we did a better job than usual about getting our points across, dispelling some myths that CCP previously believed, and overall convincing CCP of things that they didn't necessarily think were problems. I'm also probably less optimistic about how they're going to deal with it or whether they'll deal with it, so kind of a mixed bag there.
I'm scared. I'm frightened by how reasonable Mecca was tweeting after that. Like the fact that Mecca, if somebody could link that tweet that Mecca had.
I will get you that because I got it right here.
Yikes.
I called it a coming to Jesus moment. You hear that phrase a lot when people have this stark realization that things are radically different than they expected.
What happened? I mean, Anominate Vili, if things are, when I see a Mecha Gold who just sort of relentlessly shits on nullsec all the time, constantly, going to CCP and finding out something, and then coming back and publicly saying, yeah, I thought the issue was like nullsec and it's definitely overrepresented, but yeah, I'm a little concerned about stuff that's happening with Eve itself. Like,
well, yeah, without going too much into him personally, like, he's an academic, so I think that sort of left him in a position to commit more heavily to sort of what he expected things to be, but without all the information. But at the same time, I think that's also part of why he was able to adjust so quickly when he started seeing actual data.
That sounds dark. Villy, what's up?
Not much. As far as Omeka goes, I mean, we had some pretty significant disagreements leading into the summit, and certainly when you argue with someone in text, it's not quite the same as arguing in person. And overall, he's got his opinions and he's got his thoughts, and we disagreed 100% on some of the solutions, but we were both able to, have a reasonable discussion and come to some consensus on problems and thoughts, and discuss a variety of ways in which the game could go, needs to go, etc. So overall, it was just a moment where a lot of the realities of the situation uh, were expressed differently than he was used to. And to his credit, as I said, as Anominate said, he took everything and adjusted his opinion. He had the opinion that all the Noblek guys were there to do nothing but metagame the shit out of CCP and everyone else, and that our no block opinions are pure evil. And then he came and talked to us and realized that most of us are just there for the good of the game and trying to do the best we can. And it's not a situation where we're there just trying to get in under him so we can like pre-downvote him with CCP kind of thing.
Ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want a game we can log into, have fun, shoot people,
and a game that's growing. All right, none of us like seeing this decline. We want new players. We want more people playing Eve. We want a vibrant, lively game, and we also don't like to be lied to collectively and told that things are wonderful when we can all see the numbers and data. Eve players are some of the best like data crunchers out there, right? Like we have just a whole bunch of just really obsessive spreadsheet nerds, and you really can't lie to spreadsheet nerds about which direction graphs are going because Eve produces so much data that the players can measure. I guess the big question that's on the mind of almost everybody who doesn't have their head completely up their ass is, does CCP, and I know you guys can't tell us any like super details or anything, does CCP realize how dire things are for the health of the game as a whole after what's been going on the last couple months?
It was important that we were there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I say every time the CSM comes up is everything important that the CSM has done in the time that I have been there, nobody will ever know about.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, yeah, you guys can't really answer that question, and if you could answer it, but I kind of had to ask because
a way I can phrase this that doesn't risk an NDA violation is we have presented CCP with our activity numbers.
Ooh,
good.
That's good.
Good.
One number I saw, and this is a great segue moment because Tuzzy, you've been pulling the numbers. Someone showed me, I think it was Thursday night, it was peak number was 14,000. I haven't seen it under 20K in a long time.
Be careful, though. People really like to do midweek day-to-day comparisons. Like, look at today versus yesterday.
Well, and this was like Thursday versus last year, sorry.
Okay, well, compared to a year ago, that's a little more accurate. But I'd say look at Thursday compared to last Thursday versus the Thursday before that. Do a week-to-week comparison. That's probably going to be the best apples-to-apples comparison you can make because, like, anyone who looks at the EVE Offline graphs knows that the least people play EVE Online on Thursday and the most people play on Sunday, just by the nature of, like, all sorts of random ass shit, from like time zones to people getting off work to who's at school to at the time or who's asleep. And European time zone tends to be the most active every single day because it's the only time zone in which both the American people who are able to get on during the middle of their day and the European guys who can get on at night are both on at the same time. You don't get that in any other time zone where the two of the biggest time zones can simultaneously be on at the same time. And then as the day gets later and the Euros go to bed, then the Americans and U.S. folks and Canadians and Mexicans or whatever this time zone, as they get home from work, they kind of like, you'll see like a big spike in the middle of the day and you'll see a dip. That's kind of the in-between time, the commuting time, where people are coming home from school, coming home from work, having dinner, and then you'll see it climb again, and that's U.S. prime coming on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I linked your thread here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Tuzin, could you talk about, can you tell us about your data collection efforts and what you've been seeing, and if anything related to the most recent MER sort of supports or contradicts the data analysis that you published?
Well,
and
I'm not gonna touch on the MER too much because it's getting in a territory it'd be better to ask someone like Aerith about the MER related stuff. But my suspicion was based on the evidence we had of I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was like earlier this year or late last year when they were having the chat server difficulties and the chat server was offline for 2 or 3 days, basically. It wasn't offline, but it was up and down so often that you might as well consider it to be non-online, right? And we saw the player count of people just saying, "What? I'm just not going to play the game right now. I'm going to walk away until this gets fixed." You saw that fall by a lot. It's like 20 or 30% of the player base just decided not to play you. So when they announced the blackout, it's like, oh god, this is not going to last very long, because eventually, there's a large amount of players. There's a reason they are not wormholers. They fundamentally do not want to play a game like that. They don't like not having local for all sorts of reasons, between intel to like just seeing, look, I'm in Goonswarm. I want to log in and look at the system I'm in and see the other people in the system with me and talk to them. Having no local makes you feel lonely. It makes you feel like there's no one there. My suspicion was when they announced the changes that, oh, this is going to be awful. This is going to cause lots of people to just walk away or quit or move to HiSec or just leave nullsec in general. But you needed it to be implemented, and then we needed to wait to see what the numbers were going to do, to have enough data where you could say, hey, look at the numbers on this graph. Look what the graph's doing. And so by mid to late August, I thought, okay, we've had a month and a half of data. Let me look and see what's happening. Oh God, it's really going down. Okay, I'm going to start tracking this. And then I said, well, what's the best time of the week to kind of like take the temperature of Eve? I said, well, let me be the most conservative I can be and take the best possible time to get the most people that's logged in. And that's some Sundays, sometime between 1900 to 1930 Eve, which is when the most people are logged into Eve every single week. So what I do is I look at Eve offline. I wait until sometime after that time on Sunday. And anyone who's familiar with Eve offline, if you look at the 36-hour view on the chart, just below it, there's some text under it that shows you the maximum amount of concurrent logged in players in the previous 24 hours. So you're not even having to mouse over the chart to figure out what the number is. You can just look at the number on the page, and it flat out tells you what the stat is. So I just record that stat sometime after 19 whatever. Sometimes it's at like 1855, sometimes it's at 1910, sometimes it's at 1915. It varies week to week, but usually by 2000 or 2100 Eve, we've achieved that peak and it's been marked down. So I just put it on a graph. And if you look at the graph, the first weekend of the blackout, player numbers just fell through the floor. Like it was way down, like 6,000 or 7,000 people. And I guess everyone was kind of like going, okay, what's this? What is this? Let me see how this is going to work. See what this is actually doing to the game. And then after it being up for a week, a certain amount of people said, okay, I guess I'm going to start playing again and see how this is. So you saw a bit of recovery. And then ever since that recovery weekend, the number at peak each week has been going down. Some weeks it only goes down as little as 100 people. Some weeks it's went down as much as what was last week, like 2,000 people or 1,000 people or something. It went down a lot. I think it was 1,000 one week, followed by 2,000 the next week, 2,200. And I'm just now looking at today's number. Now remember, I'm doing this on Sundays, not Saturday. But last Saturday, I'm refreshing the page. I pulled stats up. Okay, we're on track for about the same thing as last Saturday, which was about 25,000 people. So I'll really be curious to see tomorrow, Sunday, how Sunday compares to last weekend, because last weekend was Labor Day weekend, so I wasn't sure whether Labor Day weekend would artificially have a lower impact on the number or not. So it may turn out that this week we kind of hold plateau. So I think it'll be interesting to see tomorrow. But total since the blackout began, at peak-to-peak numbers were down about 5,300 people logged in.
So on the MER, there is one particular chart, which is the sinks and faucets one that people look at every month. And commodities is above bounty prizes, meaning wormholes generated more ISK in August than all of the bounty prizes in the game. And incursions is half of the total bounty prizes.
Wait a second. So my brain kind of goes sideways whenever anybody starts talking about like economics or what have you. So what you're saying is the amount of bounties from incursions and nullsec is less than the output of wormhole space?
Not incursions, correct. Because that's
Roughly.
Not bounties. But the bounty prizes from like missions and anomalies and all that, yes, that is less than the total ISK generated by wormholes.
What can you just spell out the implications of that for like a very simple mitten?
Wormholes are a relatively small group of people. Nullsec is a relatively large group of people, and that smaller group is currently generating significantly more ISK.
10% of the population is generating 50% of the wealth.
Is wormholes actually like 10% of the population? Do we know how many people are actually wormhole players?
We don't have exact numbers, but I think someone was saying it's 10 to 15%. They've told me this number over the last years. It's the guys who actually go making the money are like in those C6s. They like very small communities. The ones that PvP from wormholes are even smaller than that. So it's not that big amount. Yeah, it says here CCP graphs have it at 5 to 10%. But the thing is, it's the blue loot. It's the loot that drops from abyssal sites, which is red loot. The blue loot from T3 to wormhole sites. That is generating huge amounts of money. Whereas, I mean, if you look at the graph I just linked in chat, it's a plummet. It's just a nosedive. Like, holy shit.
I thought we were the bad guys out of nullsec because we were the ones making all the money in complete safety, and that usually was the wormholers on Reddit and stuff talking about how, you know, we need a blackout because we're in too much safety, making too much ISK. That doesn't make any sense at all. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, I want to tell some numbers since we're going to go on to the bounties here, and this kind of gets us a great segue moment. I want to point out some things that are frightening about the MER for this month, and all y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, and I want you to contribute to this because you're actually in my thought when I was thinking about the MER this week and getting ready for the show. Kill mills, the cost of kill mills, the overall kill mills on that ISK faucets chart I just linked, and I'll link it again here in just a moment for those of you that want to see it. The ISK, faucets and such show a steep decline in money making, so i.e. the faucets, but the kills did not go up. The amount of people collecting insurance, it wasn't like the amount of people making money plummeted in like a free fall. And a lot of people said, oh, with the no local thing, all these kills are going to be generated and it's going to go way up. But the cost, like the amount of money that people spent, like losing ships, did not increase significantly, and we had a lot of Titan deaths this month in August. We had, I think there was like 6 in one battle here, like 6 Ragnaroks in one fight. There was 2 Hyde killed just recently this week. I think it was Sunday. Oh, hey, thanks for the 500 bits. So there's really expensive kill mills happening. There was a jump freighter killed by some guys in HighSec on Sugar02. Shout out to him. He bumped a 72 billion ISK Jump Freighter that had a Faction Fortizar in it that came out of wormhole space. And they killed that. So there's really expensive kill mills. Okay, 2 Vanquishers died in August. But yet,
yeah, thanks for the faction port wormhole, dudes. Appreciate it.
yeah, but the value is not, like, the amount of ISK killed didn't go up. So that tells me less killing, less destruction. And you're seeing that in these graphs. But the scariest... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a couple more there. Manufacturing. Looks like manufacturing as a sink is like half of what it was at the beginning of July.
And manufacturing as a sink, that's for the entire galaxy, or is that just for nullsec? Or
I believe that's the entire galaxy.
It's the entire game. Yeah.
Transaction tax. You see the tax change on the transaction tax, and since then it's just an upward slope, and that's the wrong direction. That means there's fewer transactions.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is overall across the entire game, low sec, high sec, null sec, wormholes, less people are doing all of these things. So this is not just people leaving null sec, going to high, and continuing to do the activities there. It's people all throughout the game are just saying, "Fuck EVE Online, I'm walking away."
Right, and here's the thing that's scary. And this number is scary. This is the first MER, and I went through 3 years of MERs. I went back as far as, well, actually about 3 years of MERs to find this, if there's anything equivalent to this month. I'm linking 2 images. Now, I want to show them on screen, but they'll be too big and it'll just be a mess. These are the mining and ratting value MERs. For the first time in any MER I've ever seen, a region in nullsec had 0 ISK mined. 0 billion. That was period basis. Okay?
Did you guys not clear moons?
Well,
I
that's
guess
actually...
you got them on a long cycle, yeah. That
right.
Yeah, Locust, there was less.
Right. 1 moon mined would have put that number in at least 1 billion. Right? That's an entire month. Peregrine Falls, 35 billion mined. Okay? Venal, 22 billion. Tenal, 70 billion. There was another number on here that was just... These numbers are insanely low for how secluded the space is. Fade, 5 billion.
Fade is dead. Vino
Right.
is an NPC region, and Tino is being harassed right now by PanFam, so they will rat and Declan and mine.
Well, here's another one.
So here's one of the things that freaks me out about this, that is, and this is sort of an anecdotal thing. It's not something that's going to be in like a graph or a chart, but like, the meta show is, full of spin, either sometimes we spin or people say we spin or what have you. INN, when INN publishes something, people disagree with me, people disagree with the Imperium. And on the meta show, usually when we, like in the past when the blackout hit and we were first discussing it, people would react like they would normally. And when I say normally, I mean, we say something and then there's this kind of like this fun back and forth where we're flinging shit at each other, right? Like we're trolling each other. We're going, you're an idiot. You're just saying this because, your empire is falling or what have you. There'd be pushback, I guess is what I'm saying. There'd be flack. And we had a senior staff meeting for INN on Friday, and one of the things that our editor-in-chief, Riva, was pointing out is it's just been really weird where there was an article on INN about a trillion ISK space battle, and nobody read it. And then there's articles where people are writing stuff, which incidentally, if you want to have your voice heard, like INN, it's not the New Yorker. You can, the editors will clean up what you have to say. If you want to have your say about it, you can submit an article. People have been writing about how these changes to EVE are having negative impacts. And instead of getting, people who might be our enemies in the game or whatever saying, you suck, you're biased, you're wrong. What's creepy is, in this chat right now on INN and otherwhere, is that kind of initial pushback about no, the blackout is good, everything is great, you guys are idiots, that's gone away. People are either agreeing with us, the occasional bits of opposition are really kind of half-hearted, and we're not really getting pushback. And that kind of scares me because when people are mad, they're at least engaged. And when you have people just, it's not something in a chart, but people should be, in a normal, healthy EVE, people should be attacking me about basically anything that I say. Right. And they're not anymore. And that's is weird.
This number is actually kind of scary. There are regions of low sec that are generating more ISK from bounties, like killing NPC rats, than there are in 0-0. There are like 4 or 5 0-0 regions that are literally dead in the PvE game right now that nobody is using. And this is the first time, and since I think the MER started coming out, I haven't seen it this bad. Like, I track the MER data because I do in GSA. This is crazy. And then people say, okay, well, what about the kills? If you know, we said Blackout was going to bring all these kills. Well, look at the Blackout numbers for total value destroyed in region. Delve is abysmally low for how active it is. Delve is the most active region in the game right now, period. There is no other one that's even close. We ratted 4.5 trillion. The closest one after that is under a trillion, just under a trillion. But you look at the kills, Delve's in a mediocre, like, 10 or 11 down, right?
Well, Mr. Boat, like, obviously I can't say much because Snuff as an entity is having a pretty good time. We're getting lots of fights and stuff, and because we're generally good at finding where the content is. But I was kind of hesitant about the Sino changes in that I thought they would be able to, like, buff the ship or something when they light the Sino, but it's actually not. And it's quite interesting because it means that logistically, to light a Sino in a fight, or like get Sinos to fleet fights and stuff, is going to be much harder and it's going to take much longer. But also, in terms of saving yourself, if you're running in an ANOM or like mining or whatever, it's going to be much different because you're going to have to like warp in a Pilgrim or whatever, or a Recon and light a Sino at a ping or on grid. And if that dies, then you're a bit fucked. So I think that there will be an increase in stuff dying because of the Sino change. We are definitely going to take advantage of that in the more PvE central regions, which we both know which regions we're talking about. But yeah, I do think that there's going to be an increase in roaming as well, just because there's going to be less. You won't be able to like ping and like flash form and then move an inti signer, right, and like drop on someone. You're going to have to like roam around more, and also people aren't going to be able to drop you as easily because they're going to have to like use a recon or a blackouts or whatever, and that's not easy to drop with in terms of like dropping, you know, proper Titans and stuff. So I feel like in that aspect there will be more stuff dying because of the Sino patch, but as soon as people adapt, then it will decrease again, because obviously Care Bears always adapt and stuff. But I think the next couple of months it will increase in that aspect. I'm still annoyed at CCP for not focusing on actual game issues and just kind of doing gimmicky stuff, but I do think that there will be more stuff dying because of the Sino patch.
Well, this is a question.
I think that there's definitely going to be more stuff dying whenever there's a change like that. There's just, you know, there's a call of people that don't get the memo. One of the things that really creeps me out about the Sino change isn't the change itself, I think, is bad for a variety of reasons, but basically people react poorly when you take stuff away from them. And game companies have a whole bunch of different methods to get the effect of a nerf. Like if you wanted to change Sinos and you wanted to nerf things, like have a spool up timer or a spin down timer, psychologically speaking, for the people who have Sinos on their capital ships, you could get a similar effect of this nerf without the actual full stop of remove your ship can't do this anymore. Basically, like what's concerning to me about this is it's ham-handed at a psychological level for a player who might already be frustrated about the blackout. You know, maybe you could still have the Sino on your ship. There's a spin up or a spool down timer that functionally made it a lot harder to use and a lot more risky. But the ham-handed approach of you have to revise your fit for your ship now. This thing doesn't work. You can't undock unless you take this thing off of the ship. It's a taking, right? And that's much more impactful on people's engagement than a more subtle nerf. Is I guess what I'm saying. You can still have the same effect without the full blown module no worky, take module off ship, herp derp kind of thing, right? Like space aids. Yeah, space aids changed the way that caps worked, but they didn't say, you know, you can't use this shit anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Here's what I think, and I want to get your opinion, High, because you've been killing some Titans recently in Declan. You just killed 2 recently, and I'm going to ask you about how you killed those in a minute. But the thing is I see Eve, and I want everyone's opinion on this one. I see Eve shrinking drastically in 0-0 with these Sino changes, because what's going to happen is everyone's going to get closer together, so there are less accounts needed to cover all the Sinos under the umbrellas. The umbrellas are still going to be there, people are still going to use recon sinos. The rich umbrella groups, the PanFams, the Test, us, Fraternity, they're still going to use the umbrellas. They're still going to light sinos. They have beacons in their own space if it's a well set up space like Delve is. I still see
a different game. It's a different ballpark because, say, I don't know, I've tackled your routing mix, and all right, you're like, okay, I need to warp in a pilgrim, and there's a jammer up on grid. All right, there's a signer jammer on grid. You're not killing it with defanging you, okay? Or like we're anchoring one. You're warping in your pilgrim, and it means that you have to light it at ping. But you light it at ping, we can't kill it instantly. But say we warp up, we kill it, and then only like a couple Nixes jump in, and we bubble them at a ping. You're still gonna die. Whereas beforehand, you'll be able to light a sign on your Nix, and then.
I can see that.
This is a question for Hai. I think that we're making an assumption here that every nullsec entity is just going to continue their behavior as they were before, right? And that's how we lost the casino war. Is we didn't adapt to the FOSSI changes, and we acted like everything was the same. So, just question for you as a hunter: what if nullsec empires actually just, they might have an umbrella for rorquals or something, but like, what if they just stopped doing super routing, like as a matter of policy? Like, sorry guys, this is untenable. The game's changed. Dock them up. They're heavy tacklers now in a super fight, if and when. Like, what does that do?
So
seriously, like that's not a bullshit question. It's something that we have been discussing as an option because
I think it will happen.
If you don't use, I think this is also kind of a good thing because if you don't use supers a lot, your members won't have as many supers, and they won't. People complain a lot about the super umbrellas and stuff like that, and if people use supers less, because you're going to have to use more mobile stuff to defend stuff, definitely. You can't use big, bulky ships to like supers to defend.
Sorry.
So if you're using supers less, supers are going to be less prevalent in the game, and obviously there's going to be less super routing, which is going to be bad for the game. Like, I'm not saying that I understand why CCP has done the sino change, but I think that the time they've done it and how they've done it in the game currently is the wrong way to do it, because it's just kind of, as you said, hammering home a negative thing. Like, people are quitting, and this isn't going to keep people in the game. Like, I obviously like this change for now because it's going to let me, kill things in a more interesting way, in a different way, which I haven't seen. But I know a lot of people are already upset because of Blackout, because of their, care bearing, and that's a big bulk of the game. And I feel like instead of gradually changing stuff and doing dynamic patches like CCP used to do, and like balancing ships and whatnot, and not doing gimmicky stuff, like Hilmar's just come in, done one gimmick, and not really cared about how it's affecting the player base in the bigger areas where more people play, and then just adding more and more gimmicks. And I feel gimmicks aren't the way, and the game will die, if they keep going down this way, because less and less people are going to play. But it's not going to die as such as, full stop die. It's just going to gradually decline, and then there's going to be...
Well, I think the concern is sort of a game-wide failure cascade. Like, that's always been the risk. EVE is a complicated ecosystem. And, actually, one of the things that's kind of weird here is we're all still talking about it in the way that CCP has pitched this nonsense as, it's the age of chaos. But if you actually look at the numbers, I mean, sure, it's done shitty things to the bottom line of the game, but, there was the blackout on July 12th, and then a sino change that's coming in a few days. But wasn't this originally pitched as Age of Chaos? Like, there's going to be so much stuff happening, it's going to be amazing. But they basically promised there was going to be this perfect storm of stuff, and then it's weeks and weeks between. I mean, I would rather they not do stupid things, right? The fact that if they're going to do stupid things, I'd rather they not have these things. But we were sort of pitched this amazing dynamic Age of Chaos, and EVE is going to get shaken up, and it's going to be change. There's the Drifter nonsense that went away. There was the Blackout stuff, and then we're just kind of twiddling. And another thing is the great empires are just kind of in wait and see mode. Like, what are we going to do? Start a war if there's going to be an Age of Chaos, but there hasn't really been chaos? Like, what?
A year ago.
I've pretty much always been a big supporter of CCP doing these kind of crazy changes. Like, doing Blackout, for example, would be an excellent thing to do if you were then prepared to be like, oh, shit, that's hurting our player numbers. All right, rolling that back. And then if you can pull these ideas in, pull them back out, try these crazy experiments, have them succeed or have them fail and remove them, then that's cool. But this is CCP. This is EVE. We're used to it. If once a change lands in the game, we know we're stuck with it.
It's the collapse of confidence that I think is one of the things that is most toxic, right? So Jintan, I'm kind of surprised by this too, because I watch YouTube on my TV now, and so when it's like 3 a.m. and I'm smoking weed on the couch and watching YouTube, I will admit, not only did I originally watch Omega Gold's Hunter video, but I ended up watching some videos that Jintan did. Which is hilarious because I used to make fun of Jintan. But I watched a couple of his videos on his YouTube channel. They were really good. And one of them was where he was analyzing a problem that I hadn't really thought of before, which is he's like, why do people, when they get on the CSM, so many of them, when they're off of the CSM, they don't just go back to being players, but they actually quit the game forever. Like basically one of the worst things that you could do for your retention as a player, statistically speaking, is to be elected to the CSM. And one of the things that he pointed out, and having been in there, I think is the case, is kind of like once you see how the sausages are made, once you look behind the curtain and see how CCP actually works as a company, it can be almost a shattering experience because players, I think, have this expectation of a degree of, there's lots of gaming companies, and we expect game companies to behave like game companies. And you get on the CSM and you see what actually happens over there, and you realize that instead of like some sort of vast conspiracy, in a lot of cases, it's just dangerous idiocy, and you wonder what the hell is going on. And one of the things that I think has happened, particularly with the Sino change coming on the heels of Blackout, because the Sino change was just so out there. It wasn't like a spool up or spin down timer. It wasn't a space age. It wasn't something that the player base had really been discussing, that I think the player base as a whole is now getting a glimpse of what happens behind that curtain that the CSM kind of sees. And that ain't good. That's my concern, is the crisis of confidence.
I really wish I could go into more detail, but since my second term on the CSM, one of my favorite things to do has been to watch the newbies on the CSM, the people who it's their first summit, and they have this idea of what the CSM means, and you get to watch them go through the week and just like you get to watch their spirit break. It is great.
Yeah.
But as we figure out what we're actually there for, what we're actually doing.
I mean, I don't know, like what I've been told, and I'm not gonna, ask CSM members because I guess you can't say, but what I was told by previous people I'm not gonna name them, but it's basically what happens is like CCP Falcon or whatever, well, not Falcon, Fuzzy, whatever, whoever the fuck runs them, will come in, tell you like certain ideas, and he'll just kind of list stuff that he likes, and it will kind of just be him basically telling you stuff, and you'll try and discuss stuff, but it's basically at the end of the day what they want is going to happen.
Well, that is something I can talk about and be very clear about, is that when you get onto the CSM, you're not an amateur elected game designer. If you think you can go in there and tell CCP what they're going to do, that is not what the CSM is for. Yeah,
obviously it's not what you can do, but they don't really heed what you.
One of the reasons why I think Olmeca, and I'm glad that he did become more reasonable once he learned whatever he learned, sort of analogizing it to when I was on the CSM 6, of course, the nullsec blocks banded together because the CSM had basically been ignored until CSM 5 ended up with a bunch of high-seckers saying that they were going to advocate for removing jump bridges entirely. So nullsec essentially said, we can't allow randos to have this access and be used as an excuse to break the game. So nullsec all gets in there. But it's a whole bunch of people from nullsec that hated each other's guts in the game. And then pretty rapidly, and I'm not under NDA anymore, the NDA is a 5-year term, and this is back in 2010, 2011. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't appreciate is how much rear guard action the CSM does as a unit to essentially save the game from CCP on just a fucking summit by summit basis, because some of the ideas are so skull fuckingly stupid that you are just like the San Diego thing. Like, oh yeah, hey, why are they moving fucking Vegas? What the fuck? Why aren't people asking? What did you guys find out? Why did they abandon Vegas? What the fuck is with the San Diego shit? Seriously. India. Like what?
I have not heard a single player who was like, oh, hey, San Diego, that sounds like a great idea.
I want to bring us back to Eve, because I want to make fun of San Diego, and we did it a lot last week, but we will run out of time if we go there, because I will shit all over that idea, as beautiful as San Diego is. But we said this a year ago, Mittens. and you specifically said this, and I went back to the VOD and got this. I don't have a link for it because I can't find it. But I looked at this week. We said that if you kill the PvE game in EVE, you kill EVE. Because we were talking about what would a no local mean for 0-0 at the time. This was a year ago. And everyone laughed and joked and said, look, no local will never happen because it would kill the PvE game. People would stop mining and ratting in the big expensive ships because it just won't be safe. And a non-safe EVE is going to cause no PvE or PvE. And if there's no PvE, there's no PvP. I mean, I'll be honest, I like to roam in EVE. And with this Sino change, I mean, I haven't played in a couple weeks because I've been hyper busy. I don't even see myself wanting to roam with this no Sino change coming up. Because I don't think it's going to make it any safer for me to PvP, to be honest.
Do you not think that the game, you know, after Citadels and after tethering and, you know, all this, you know, everyone having a Titan proliferation, do you not think ratting became kind of too safe in that all you have to do these days is, especially after Panic and stuff?
Right now, EVE is a game of bombers. Who can bring 200-300 bombers, torpedo shit, and then leave? That's all it is. Bombers aren't going to bring people to the game. Oh, go ahead.
EVE right now is onto a place where Ultima Online went, where if things keep going in this direction, all of the PvEers are going to be driven out, all of the content is going to be driven out, and so the game is going to wind up being a small group of the same hardcore PvPers flying around shooting each other forever.
But is EVE too big for that, though, Nominate?
Well, the rate they're going, I mean, Pac-Man, when you see a week-over-week decline, like, okay, so here's the thing, something we talked about on the Meta Show last week, and I would love to be wrong about this. So, like, guys, if you would normally be the kind of people that are like, you know, fuck you mittens, you're spinning or whatever, like, for God's sakes, please, like, dive into the data and make me eat this prediction or eat my words. But, like, we know what a big bot purge looks like in the data because there's the unholy rage thing in 2009. So the argument that like the players that are not logging onto the game are just all bots, you can actually see a model of what happens when there's a mass bot ban. And one of the things that is so freaky about this is when you are losing on your peak playtime, like a couple hundred people, that's like a slow reversible decline. But when you have a week when you're losing more than 1,000 long enough, like the percentage that they are losing is like it's terrifying. It is really genuinely frightening that CCP hasn't looked at this data. So there's so many reasons to be frightened about this. One is watching the game die, that sucks. But two, the fact that it seems that CCP does not actually have the kind of data people that we, the player base, have. We have a whole bunch of data people, spreadsheets online, and collectively across the game, people are putting their heads together and analyzing the data and going, whoa, shit. And it doesn't seem like CCP is even aware of this erosion of the foundation of the social structure of the player base, and that is terrifying to me.
Since the third week of July, it went down 600 players, then down 450, then down 100, then down 760, then down 980, then down 2,320. That was last weekend down.
So the decline is accelerating?
Yes. Well, keep in mind, last week was Labor Day weekend. I do not know how the holiday, if it really should have only been down 1,300 on a normal weekend, but because it was Labor Day, it was more, and either we'll see it go back up this week or it'll plateau. If it plateaus, then I would say then probably that decline last week would have been about 1,000, and this week would have been another 1,000. But you got it all weighed in on that last week because it was holiday. But yeah, let's see let's wait till tomorrow, see what the numbers are. But yeah, that 2,300, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? But still, if it continues at this rate, at some point it needs to level out, or we're not going to have any people left by Christmas.
Well, I got something for you, and you all love numbers. Also, hi, Noisy Gamer. I read your stuff a lot, and the MER came out, and literally your what do you want to call it? The numbers matched, the MER matched your numbers. Here's a link that you're gonna like. This is showcasing. Okay, well, all the bots are gone. Rip bots, lol bots. Someone actually went and dove into all these botting corps and alliances that are known to have bots. They just all moved to HiSec. Literally 6,000 bots in one alliance left, like the player base left the alliance, made a new alliance, and then moved to HiSec. And they're all active in HiSec. So this is a Reddit thread where the guy compiled those numbers. Also, Noisy Gamer points out 6,800 people were banned last week, which exceeded the 6,200 of the Unholy Rage.
Well, that's actually good news. So that could be data that contradicts my fear. Like, I don't want this to be
it doesn't
happening.
though.
So
here's why. I have a reason for that. I talked to someone about this. Skill injectors. Making a one-day-old bot, skill injecting them instantly into a VNI and going botting and making hundreds and hundreds of those so that when one gets banned, you have another replacement is extremely easier than getting yourself in 2009 into a ratting carrier and then botting with it. Because that's what people would do back then. They would get into those ratting ships and go botting. So getting all those skill points, skill injectors are easy as hell. It's really easy to get yourself into a ship with a skill injector and then go botting. And then if you lose it, no big deal, right? So that's, I mean, banning 6,800 people today, that doesn't bother me because a guy might have 100 bots ready and waiting to replace the 100 he just lost, thanks to skill injectors.
If there is a mass Unholy Rage style bot ban in the midst of all this other data, that is a good thing. Like, I am delighted that the CCP security team is purging all of these people, if that's what they're doing, and that's good. One of the other things to keep in mind about the data that Tuzzy is going to be publishing week over week that is creepy is that, keep in mind, guys, so I see people making the usual excuses in chat, which is good because seeing some kind of pushback is good. They're not calling me names, but they're talking about WoW Classic or the infamous summer slump. Keep in mind, guys, that I don't think the data really shows much of a summer slump, but I could be wrong on that. We want to be wrong about this, but the fact that this decline is happening in the midst of really aggressive promotional efforts from CCP, one of the things I think we lose track of is, as we're watching this decline, this is happening during CCP's frantic efforts on their marketing team to give people skill points, to get people to log in, to get people to do stuff, to get people to do anything. Why isn't it going up? If those efforts weren't happening, if they weren't running all this promotions, would this downward decline be even more?
Sure.
Like, this is just fucking freaky.
Another excuse that really irked me from the thread last week was that a lot of folks are saying, oh, well, school's starting back and therefore, people are playing less. It's like, well, what? No, guys. I can tell you haven't been playing the game very long, or you haven't been paying attention, or you're just ignorant. But historical data shows that every fucking summer since this game started, that starting the last 2 weeks of August, the numbers start going back up. People going back to school means more people play EVE, not less. Things are continuing to go down. Also, if you look at Labor Day last weekend, the year before, and the year before that, the numbers don't suggest that their Labor Day weekend, a lot of people normally play the game less. I keep seeing these same excuses brought up.
So let me clarify that. You're saying that past data about Labor Days show that Labor Day holidays don't result in a dip. They either does Labor Day in the past go up or down? I guess
in some years it goes slightly up, some years it goes slightly down. But there's no way to definitively say, oh, Labor Day weekend people don't log in, therefore that 2,000 drop is because of Labor Day.
Man, so this is just kind of something I'm curious about. So say CCP rollback Blackout, and the game still isn't at a good point right now, regardless of Blackout, anyways. So, for example, what would it take for you guys and like Test and Horde, for example, to stop your high sec agreement and start fighting each other? Because at least in Snuff, I'm seeing an influx of people just wanting to join because they are not having fun right now in North alliances. Because at the end of the day, it is a game, and people do enjoy fighting and bad blood and stuff like that. And I know in the last one of the previous meta shows, I was talking to you about the high sec stuff, and you were like, well, CCP's kind of forced us into this, but what would it take for you to kind of be more excited about the game and be more aggressive?
It's a couple different things. The main thing is the regulatory risk issue, because when I say regulatory risk, that's like lawyer speak, but essentially, a lot of people back in the day when people would still call me names and say that I'm being an idiot, which I kind of miss because the apathy is more frightening. When we undeployed from the northern attack against NC Dot because of the drifter stuff, that wasn't bullshit. Like I wanted to keep fighting. My director was like, no, we finished the objectives and it would be a bridge too far. Let's, let's calm things down. But the bigger issue, once we undeployed and what have you, is when you don't know. Let me back up. This is a complicated question, and I want to take it seriously. And also, I appreciate you asking that because it is a legit question. Nullsec empires, I don't think people who are in smaller organizations understand how much like a city-state or a nation-state or a real-world multinational corporation these things are until they're, once you're on the inside, you can kind of see. But moving thousands of people across a map in the world's most complicated and competitive game is a tremendous commitment of time. And there's also an amount of inertia, a lot of social inertia. It takes a lot of time to mobilize a large group of people for war, right? There's a tremendous amount of material. When I say material, I mean just all of the fuel, all the ships, all the supplies. There's infrastructure that's required, just a shitload of work goes on. And if you have a smaller org, what I call Dunbar's number orgs, which is 150 humans and below, you're much more nimble, right? You can get a Dunbar's number org to move around much more rapidly because it doesn't require, the armies require infrastructure and they require bureaucracy. And people make fun of nullsec empires for bureaucracy, but in order to knit tribes of more than 150 people together in these units, the glue is bureaucracy, and that's what allows the organization to move. So one of the reasons why the Drifter stuff, the Blackout stuff, oh hey, the Sino stuff, all of the Hilmar Age of Chaos nonsense is so corrosive, and you see that it's not just the Imperium reacting that way, it is all of the nullsec empires, because fundamentally, all of the nullsec empires have very similar structures. Like the bells and whistles might be a little bit different, but we constantly steal shit from each other, right? So like if one nullsec empire has a good idea about how to organize things, another nullsec empire will steal that because better organization is an advantage in war. So one of the things that's so fucked up about this situation is in an environment where it takes like a month of really hard work to get people up and running and deployed over to the other side of the galaxy to fight another group of people who are spending a month plus working to gear up for a defense, because usually we know when we're going to be trying to kill each other because we all have spies up each other's asses and blah, blah, blah. And you have to worry about in the middle of the deployment, Hilmar is going to come back from some Eve meet in Australia or wherever he got the idea and say, yeah, guys, locals out and also Sinos aren't going to work and whatever. You might go to war, and because these organizations are so massive and to project that power takes so much infrastructure and commitment, to have that kind of interrupted in an unpredictable way. Like you could go to war and basically find that your dick's on the table and now your Sinos don't work and you're just like, what the fuck? And so then that's the burnout thing. Because you could say, this is the other iteration. You could say just go home or just adapt or what have you, but then moving thousands of people or adapting that's again more man hours, more work, more effort that degrades your strategic capacity because you already burned out a bunch of your key people just moving the org in the first place. You can only really redeploy a large organization about once every 3 months, or you get serious spread out fatigue. So you see early nullsec empires making mistakes because they move staging more than once every 3 months. We've all kind of like narrowed it down that you can move stagers about once every 3 months without making people quit the game and like wander off and go away. So that's basically why in an environment where you cannot predict reasonable changes, like if Hilmar had said, we've all discussed spool up and spin down timers for Sinos, this is a change that people can reasonably predict as something that might happen. Like if they talked about how they're going to remove asset safety, that would not interfere with a deployment or something, because that's something we've all debated, removing asset safety. But when they're coming out of nowhere with basically just stupid bullshit out of left field, you don't want to commit your people to a push to something if, for all you know, midway through, they're going to say, yeah, all of your ships have been replaced with like Nerf guns or I don't know, just stupid random shit that he can't predict.
Here's one
sounds
for you,
like
Hi.
you're
Hold
basically...
on. Well, Hi, you're gonna. I'll give you an analogy here.
Hi asked the
ahead,
question,
sorry.
and so Hi, please respond.
Well, I kind of agree with you in that it does take a lot of effort to move stuff around and deploy, and you're right about that. So the way I kind of take that is that you'd prefer if CCP kind of did the more regular dynamic patches that we used to see more of back in the old days, where they kind of
iterative patches. Like, for God's sakes, we went for a while there where like the meta in nullsec fleet combat was T3 cruisers, and it was just stayed stale for 3 years. Other game companies
right now.
like, fuck with the ships, guys. Like, please just iterate on the fucking ships. It's a spaceship game. The way that CCP got out of the Incarna mess, once they sort of had their "oh shit, guys, we fucked up, we're so sorry," is they made new spaceships. They put new sand in the sandbox, and they let us blow each other up with spaceships in a spaceship game in new and interesting way. And lo and behold, we all went back to killing each other. I would love to be doing what I do in this game, which is trying to find ways to make life shitty in the game, make life shitty for the remnants of the Band of Brothers Alliance, who are mostly involved in CDOT or a few of them in PL. Like, the natural state of the world in EVE is Goonswarm, and all of our friends are trying to kill Bob and their latest respawn and all of their friends. And the fact that we basically have been prevented from going after people we don't like, and worse, that because of this, the Sino change is freakier to me than the Blackout. The Blackout, even if it's bad for the game, was at least something that we discussed as a community for years. It was debated, it was normal, it was whatever. The Sino stuff wasn't one of the discussions about Sinos, and that was so freaky, I think, for a lot of people who are in leadership, because it just shows such bad judgment, and the fact that they're not even like listening to the debates the players are having. It's just like, what the fuck is even going on? And that's really the creepy, shitty thing.
I mean, I got an analogy for you, and maybe you all can correct me. And Villy, I think you may here. Just today, this morning, we lost 66 billion in faxes to test bombers, 250 test bombers, maybe more than that. They blew us up. Okay, that's an expensive whelp. Maybe nowadays people won't view it as expensive, but I do. I still think 66 bill is a lot of ISK. It's, 15, 20 facts. So we still shoot each other. But getting goons to go invade test or test to invade goons would be about as likely as Snuff invading a NIT or a NIT trying to evict Snuff from their space. Friendships don't just disappear. Yeah, you're still going to blow up each other's spaceships, but you don't have a reason to go evict each other because, like I said, with CCP making the changes they're making, space is about to shrink. Ain't nobody gonna want to take more space.
It's important to understand here in this discussion that, like, the question, the base question, what we're really trying to get down to here is, why isn't there more war? And the reality is, there's not more war because war is fucking terrible in EVE. Like, as the only one currently fighting a war, it's just fucking tedious and boring, and it's just like timer after timer, and the correct meta play is usually not to take a good fight and have good fun. It's to, what way can I make the enemy's life fucking terrible, and they have succeeded and we have succeeded, right? And that's the core problem. So when you say, why aren't you attacking them, it's like, because I don't need my life to be any more terrible than it already is, and that's true for most people in this game.
Yeah, I want to touch on Fozzy here for a second. When other game companies see that players are cooperating around a game mechanic to avoid that game mechanic, they change that game mechanic. So, for example, when Fozzy was implemented, essentially everybody in nullsec functionally, we still have to do it, it's tedious and what have you, but we try to fight over other things. And instead of going, wow, we really have stopped these big fleet battles, this mechanic sucks, I guess because we stopped complaining about it because we just moved on and found ways around it. CCP never really went in to truly clean up that mess. One of the things I want to talk about here about the kind of PvP we're seeing is this. People like to shit on nullsec empires for being big empires and for doing PvE. If they're not in the empire, they don't understand what it's about. But if you are a nullsec empire player, very likely your attitude towards spaceships and the fantasy of flying a spaceship that has lasers and guns on it and cool shit like that comes from seeing science fiction of vast space battles, right? And, Star Wars or Legend of Galactic Heroes or anything, or in Babylon 5 when the Vorlons are fighting the Shadows. Whenever I see in any kind of sci-fi anything just a huge, vast fleet blotting out a sun, that gets me hard. Like I get all hot and bothered when I see two huge fleets in sci-fi fucking clashing. And EVE Online is the only game that you can get that in. And one of the things that I think that people don't realize is that there are many types of PvE and PvP in EVE Online, and all of them are valid. I'm not going to tell a wormhole player that their way of playing the game is wrong. I'm not going to tell a ganker that ganking is wrong, because there's many different types of ganking too. There's the stuff that like you can gank capitals, you can gank people in high sec, you can do all this sort of stuff. But like people are drawn to nullsec not just because they want a safe place to crab. They're drawn to the empires because they want to participate in these massive fucking game-changing battles, to see what it's like when there are just these vast fields of ships smashing into each other. And you can't get the scale of those battles. And I don't think that people at CCP understand what goes into making one of those battles happen. BR5, good example. I get a call waking my ass up out of bed after only 2 hours. And you have to organize, actually, no, it was 6 VDT. That was 2,400 human beings on Mumble. We had to organize 2,400 people inside of just an hour, because we had so many people turn up, organize them into fleets, get those fleets coordinated, going into different places, get them with recon people, all of this shit. And that's what goes into making these epic clashes that you could only get in EVE Online, and you can only have the scale to build a fleet like that when you have an institution, when you have organization, when you have empire, when you have your bureaucracy, because it's a lot of fucking work to bring thousands of people together in a coordinated way such that they can blow up each other's spaceships. And that, I think, is something that has been missed.
I've got one for you.
Well,
and let me ask you this, Hi, because you're going to like this question. You, as a person that's doing the ganking, especially with dreads, and we've seen that recently when you killed those 2 Ragnaroks. Let's say you tackle a Nyx that you know is ratting constantly and is dumb, and you know how they're going to respond. So you tackle that Nyx in the hopes and prayers that Nyx lights his Sino and brings his friends, because you have enough dreads that you're going to wipe out those friends. That's the problem. With this change, those friends may not show up. So yeah, you'll kill one Nyx, but if you've got 200 dreads ready to kill the 5 or 6 Titans that come to save him, their name may never appear. So you may never have that chance in that moment to do that. And organizing 200 people for a quiet, very ninja gank is hard to do. We've all done it. Everyone in this channel, except for I think maybe a nominate, has actually participated in that level of, oh shit, we about to drop 400 dreads, and they're not going to know what's coming, and we got to hide this shit. It's hard to do. And even if they see it coming, there's maybe no guarantee that they drop in to save their friends, because they have, even with the Sino up, right? You let a Sino on a bait Nyx because he's your guy. We did this to Darkness once. A Hell lit a Sino and said, guys, come save me. Only one other Wyvern showed up. That Hell is not going to light a Sino as of the 10th. He's going to have to do it on a Pilgrim, and if you blow up that Pilgrim instantly, there may be no other kills.
No, when we do that, we normally hunt the bigger fish anyways, and they're more predictable, like Test and Goons, and we definitely will be hammering one of those entities quite hard too. But anyways, the thing I wanted to talk about in relation to basically everything you guys have said is, like, I know that diplomacy, you talk about not having the fight instigators and stuff, and that's another issue, but, diplomacy in the game is always going to get stronger and stronger because that's just a natural progression of things, and that just happens. But I feel like because CCP has not really, done anything about the poor decisions they've made in patches, and they're not reiterating on stuff, there's no rebalancing, everything is quite stale right now. It's always just bombers and MJD destroyers and MJD doctrines and stuff, because they're not changing anything. That's just kind of accelerating the diplomacy, and that's why everyone kind of is in this little blue huddle up. And I don't think that's going to really change, even if the game changes, just because everyone feels safe in the little circle.
I think that people underestimate our appetite for destruction. I mean, one of the things that people in my directorate hear regularly when I get a bug up my ass about somebody or other is that I say that, maybe this makes me a sadist or a sociopath or whatever, but, there's something just really satisfying about getting really butt blasted about something that's actually kind of safe to get butt blasted about. Like, anger can be really kind of cathartic. And it's hard in a civilized society to really express that anger in a way that's actually safe. So like, if I rage out and say that I'm like hungering for somebody's suffering, and like we go and we blow up a bunch of Vince's shit, it's kind of cool that like, at Eve Meets and stuff, I drink beers on a regular basis whenever I see her with Lady Scarlet. We've been enemies for more than a decade, and we're still enemies in Eve because, I mean, hell, up until the Drifter stuff, I was trying to push our guys into Malpay to chase after these dudes and burn everything they had down. The stereotype of people from outside of the nullsec empires is that people in nullsec empires are like Ascendant Frontier. Ascendant Frontier, Asken was purged by Bob, and they were hobbits, and they literally just wanted to have PvE, and they wanted to make nullsec like Empire. We, at least speaking for Goonswarm and for my directorate, do this for war and murder and conquest and challenge and victory and the lamentations of our foes, and having people come after us and then breaking them and beating them and winning, and seeing smug fuckers think that they can look down on my people, and then getting to read on their internal forums their suffering as they had dared come after our tribe. It gets me all hot and bothered, and it's fun and it's safe, right? It's safe because it's a fucking video game. And, people don't go to nullsec for true safety, because apparently, I guess, if you want a true safety, you just go farm in a wormhole and shit out money and never see anybody trying to kill you. But, I think that one of the challenges that we have is that the people that are not part of nullsec empires have fundamental misunderstandings of why the empires do their thing. Like, why are Test and Fraternity fighting? Because they want to smash their spaceships together. They don't have to be. It's not like a hell war where there's full of hatred, but they want to keep beating the shit out of each other.
But like, for example, the high-sec keeps the argument. Your big enemy is, Pan Fam and its constituents, but you're kind of neutral to one of the biggest, entities in that group now. And if the game was to change in a drastic way where it is better, it's healthier, would you leave, that agreement?
Do you realize that most of the people that are attacking Delve on a daily basis now are from Pandemic Horde, or from like most of the bomber gangs we see attacking and blowing up our supers
by them and
are like the. Here's an example. That people forget the history. OTEC, Botlord. Did OTEC and Botlord keep us from trying to murder zone everything affiliated with NCDOT and PL, even though we had economic agreements around the edges? Those economic agreements, like when BR5, Grath approached me after that, because we were in that war, the Halloween war, to kill NCDOT. And PL, we still had this sort of shitty relationship with them. There was more PL losses in BR5 than NC. But I'm friends in a weird sort of way with like Grath and Elise and Headliner and some of those guys. At the very least, like Spaceship Drinking Buddies. And Grath approached me and was like, "Look, dude, like all of our guys, all of our ships are trapped in the station because like Manny fucked up, and like a lot of our guys are going to quit the game if they do this because they're locked in there. They've just lost all their shit." And I'm like, "Look, dude, like I'll like quietly will set blue standings to PL so you guys can evac and rebuild and do your thing, because ultimately speaking, we want to be able to mash big groups of our spaceships into each other's spaceships and turn those spaceships into kill mails and turn those kill mails into stories and turn those stories into bragging rights and then meet each other up for beers and make friends and tell war stories about it." So there's a lot of these kind of deals that happen between nullsec entities to allow for massive combats in certain areas. And treaties and agreements across coalitions have not stopped that.
At some point, you have all of the wolves in Eve who are hunting the sheep. If the wolves kill the sheep, if the sheep go away, then the wolves can only either cannibalize each other or die.
Well, and spaceships are fucking expensive, guys. It takes a lot of fucking ISK to build up a Titan fleet and blow each other up, right?
Yeah,
we don't want peace. Our people want to kill.
Well, the thing is, hang on.
Let high talk, please.
The thing about Delve is that's more ganking, and I'm more like on the lines of fights. And what you say about people having, under the table agreements and stuff like that is what Jay basically alluded to, was that the game is just going to become like Ultima Online, which is what somebody's already said, and it's just arranged fights. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is the game is going to be arranged fights between you and Goblin, saying that,
these agreements have existed forever. You guys just didn't know about it. This has always been the way of nullsec, and yet, for some reason, we have successfully managed to smash our spaceships into each other and blow each other up and have good stories about it for years. What you are seeing now and you are complaining about is maybe new to you, but it's always been there in one form or another. And
I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining because, we're having a really good time ourselves, right? We're still killing stuff. It's more, I'm just curious about how the game could become better for you guys.
I could
so
still.
that-
I think-
I'll put it like this. Let me add this bit.
Let me say something here.
Okay.
So, Jesus, you're complaining about like there not being any conflict around the trading tower, but like you completely ignore the fact we fought over the thing for like 3 months to the point where like we were just throwing like 500 Feroxes against each other like every day for almost like 4 weeks straight, I think it was, and literally everyone in that process got tired of doing it because it was so monotonous of just like show up with Feroxes, shoot each other, okay.
This is what I'm saying. Like, what would have to happen for like there to be a constant content, something good, so that people actually, kind of.
But
You asked that question. Hold on.
Over time, every one of these agreements has led to a major war. So they don't just it's not just like nullsec is sitting there all happy making money forever. These agreements eventually create friction and fights.
Even if they do or don't, here's the thing about that. I would still invade Horde space, still shoot their keep stars, and still make a shitload of money in HiSec. That trading tower in HiSec, making all the money that it's making, probably wouldn't even change the fact that we would shoot each other, because we're still all going to make a shitload of money off it, right? So even if I invaded TKE tomorrow with all of the Imperium, not that I'd have the power to do that, I probably would still say, okay, let's still have our HiSec trading tower, because they're going to use that to reimburse their ships. We're going to use it to reimburse our ships, and we can blow up more spaceships. Like, why the fuck would you not want that, right? As someone like us, you would still keep, like, OTEC still happened, even though I would go hunting Vince Draken's Titan every fucking day, right? It didn't change how I played the game. It didn't change the wars in Eve. It just made shitloads more money, and that more money meant more reimbursement. That meant more killing, right? More money is never a bad thing. Making money off a bunch of people in HiSec who probably will never go to 0-0, who use the trading tower to then fund my ability to play Eve for free. I'm never going to say no to that.
Fight over what?
I can shoot
confidence
keep stars
in CCP.
nullsec all day.
Yeah, this is. I'm basically just trying to make the point that all that has to happen is that there needs to be more dynamic changes and rebalances and stuff like that, and CCP has to kind of.
And I think we all agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, if CCP starts behaving more like a functional game development company, and that was the thing. Like, during the Incarnate Crisis, they finally accepted the fact that they had done fucked up good after the usual we know better, we're CCP nonsense because they're in an echo chamber over there. But once Hilmar had an apology letter that was posted, we want to get back together with CCP as a player base, I think, and go back to playing spaceship games and blowing each other up in a way. And I think that if the confidence in the leadership and the management and the design of the game is restored by CCP to the player base as a whole, not just to the nullsec empires, because the stats show this is like way beyond that. If we're not worried about the health of the game itself, it's a lot easier to go back to having basically petty squabbles, right? Like, it's kind of hard for me to get like super butt blasted at Vince if, we are pulling together people, the player base is organically kind of coming together and like looking at all these numbers and going, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is happening to the game? So if CCP is able to do what they did after the Incarnate Crisis, which is come clean with the player base, admit that they fucked up, and do better, then we can go back to worrying about each other as enemies rather than going, Jesus Christ, what is this company doing to the game itself?
Yeah. The uncertainty.
On time!
Someone in chat said this. Uncertainty, I think it was Brisker Ball, uncertainty leads to less war. You're not going to go shoot your neighbor.
Yeah, everybody clenches their fucking butt cheeks.
Right, yeah, like here's the thing. If CCP was doing what they used to do under CCP Seagull, where you knew pretty much 3 to 6 months out what the fuck they were changing or working on, that'd be great. The Age of Chaos, a lot of people thought, we're going to get this every week, and now we're getting maybe once a month, maybe once.
They don't have they haven't articulated it.
There's no outline. Yeah, right. There's no.
Sorry, guys. we're running over. We haven't done cool kids mode. Like I got emotional. Like, we're all having a pretty serious discussion here, but that's that is one of the things, is that back in the day there was an executive producer. Usually throughout most of EVE's history, there has been an executive producer of some kind who is like the spokesman for EVE, talking about where they want to go with the game and what they're doing and how it all ties together. And one of the reasons why I think the not so chaotic Age of Chaos, because the so-called Age of Chaos has really only resulted so far in like 2 changes spaced out quite a lot, has been, it's not part of a vision. You're not taking people or showing people the place that you want to lead them to. Like if you're going to be a leader, you need to say, here's the facts on the ground. You need to do a whole bunch of things, but you basically need to show people a vision of how things could be to help them get through the struggles that we need to struggle through to get towards that vision. And the Age of Chaos, because it's just random and doesn't seem to have any real articulation other than, we don't know what's going on, let's press this button over here and hope that the numbers go up. Derp, 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 derp. Like it's just, it's not a vision. It's stupid. And some people are idiots, but most of the player base in this game are not idiots. So we need a vision. We need leadership. We need a coherent story for where New Eden is headed. Even if that never happens, but at least Seagull would tell us she wanted to take it to a place where players could construct Stargates. And that was enough. At least it was something. And right now we got nothing.
Right. Yeah, that, again, as a teacher, I like to have an idea of, like right now, I already know what the next month's going to look like in a rough outline. My day-to-day is going to be different, but EVE doesn't have that right now. The chaos is literally CCP. I like to think of it as a giant sticky board. You know those tennis balls, you throw them at the little like hand gloves, they would stick? They're literally doing that with their ideas. It's throw the thing at the wall, hope it sticks. Okay, we're going to go with that. There's our chaos for the day. There's no, what do you want to call it? I mean, it may be chaotic and maybe that's what they want, but I feel like there's no, I guess you could say, security in the idea that, or safety in the idea that you know what CCP is doing. Like, or what's the word for it? You can't trust that they're going to do it right. They're not going to just.
There's a lack of hope. I think
right.
that there's a crisis of confidence that the player base is looking at this stuff. When High is, and Haiwanto snuffs out like constantly, like going to be killing goons, going to gank people. When we're all kind of here agreeing, like where's the iteration? Like where is the company providing a vision or what have you? Sort of like the underlying thing that people haven't given voice to, I think, is that CCP's behavior has resulted in a lack of confidence, and a lack of confidence fundamentally is a lack of hope for the future. They are not demonstrating that there is stuff to look forward to in turning this thing around, because the flailing and the thrashing does more to destroy hope and confidence than anything else.
And you can't blame Classic WoW here. I'm tired of people saying it. There's a 4-hour wait to get into that game on a daily, nightly basis. There is no person working 5 days a week that's going to sit there and wait.
That's a fad.
Right, but they're not going to sit there and wait 4 hours to try and get onto that because they have to be in bed at 9 or 10 o'clock because they got work the next day, right? Like, there's nobody doing that. I
don't know about that.
Well, I
played around in 2004, and it was crap then, and I don't see how it's not still crap.
Well, a lot of the nostalgia value. But anyways, yeah.
Well, I'm depressed now, so yay. Okay, so let's. We should probably wrap this up. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, and it is serious. And
well, before we go, there was something I wanted to link. Okay, yeah, we wanted to talk about this, and without breaking NDA, can you two comment on this? Is CCP looking at this? They kind of said they were. They kind of said they weren't. We found out that bots were able to use in-game data. You know, when you hit that Control-Alt-Shift-M or whatever to pull up the logs. Bots are able to see into data that would show when a person was warping on grid or jumping through a gate on grid, and could actually tell, okay, my bot needs to get safe now. We noticed that over the last few months with NGSA that bots were able, it says it's being fixed in the patch notes, but anyways, bots were able to, all of a sudden they would change. Like you'd warp ahead of them to light a Sino, and all of a sudden they would change direction and disappear. It says that exploit will be fixed on Tuesday. Okay, we're hoping it's fixed, but never know with CCP. Okay, they're right. They answered my question, but this is a big one. So for months now, bots have been able to do some pretty crazy things. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, is there a question there? I mean, you pretty much
Well,
just described
I was about to
everything
ask a
that's
question, but
about.
everyone answered it. Sorry. Chat answered it for me. They're fixing it Tuesday. So it was game breaking. And that just kind of ruined my point. Rip. And there's one more thing here.
Okay, here's a question just about feelings.
Okay.
So to the CSMs, as we close this out, I'd like to hear from each of you. Do you have more hope for the future? Do you have about the same amount of hope? How are you feeling about Eve after your summit experience this go round? Let's start with the nominee.
I think CCP is actively working to accelerate the demise of Eve and is more. I think there are elements that are going to fight that, but I think that ultimately the company is going to wind up slowly killing the game and doing so much faster than the game would die if they did nothing at all.
Yikes.
Here's something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That said, I want to be proven wrong.
So I am more hopeful for sure than I was before, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to make an impact. I am obviously pessimistic at times, but certainly I don't think CCP is trying to do harm. But certainly, if there is definitely a case where what Innominate said could be true. So I'm not sure either way yet. Obviously, we will see in the next 2, 3, 5, 6 months what steps are taken, and if they iterate and work with the CSM on the stuff we talked about, then I think we can course correct and do what we need to do to not only save Eve, but make it a much more long-term, much more viable game. If they don't, I would be very worried.
The answer that I had hoped to hear was a short and concise, yeah, I have hope for the future. Things are, I am hopeful and optimistic after the CSM summit, but I can't tell you anything, NDA. So when we see yikes. Okay.
Yeah, we're about to call it a day here. One final thing, and I may have lost my train of thought on this, is I'm hopeful that October comes and October goes, and I'm going to say this hopefully. All this shit of chaos and randomness just disappears because it's all about making money, right? I'm hoping that's the case. I know a lot of people say that's a really fucked up view to have, that, oh, you want CCP to do this only because they're making money. No, I want them to do this because the hopes and praise is they look at this and go, yeah, we're going to reverse all this fucking shit. We made our money. It was a mistake. We're fixing this right now, right? That's the hope come October. We ain't at October yet. We got a month to go. So we'll see that. If October rolls around and CCP like reverses course dramatically and goes, yeah, this isn't working, then we'll know it's about the Benjamin. It's about the money.
It's all right, but CCP knows what they're doing. This is all a ploy to get us into microtransactions on Eve Echoes.
Wait,
okay.
You say Eve Vegas?
Eve Echoes he's talking about.
That's another thing. There was a Hilmar tweet or someone tweet. I meant to bring this up, but I don't have the link. They're looking for a producer for London for another game for 6 months. Right now, just got posted this week.
Yeah, that's probably the latest iteration on Nova or Dust 514.
They're saying it's going to be an MMO, completely new game.
Yeah, it would be.
The tweet says specifically for an unannounced MMO.
Yeah, it's an
if they
unannounced
basically
MMO.
copy Warframe but with like Dust Mercenaries and get some stuff like that, like there's a lot of potential there. Okay, guys. Well, I'm running out of steam because we've been doing this for an hour and a half. But I've been running my mouth since noon. So wow, actually 4.5 hours of running my yap. There's something desperately wrong in my brain. So speaking of that, I want to thank all of you for coming and dealing with whatever brain disease I have. Thank you all to our guests. Thank you for our CSMs for here for telling us your feelings. I think it is really interesting to see. Billy, was this your first summit?
It was.
Oh man, you can see that. You can see the difference between a grizzled, bitter CSM veteran of the trenches there, and yikes. Well, thank you all for coming. I will not be here next Saturday because I will be somewhere on a boat in the south of France doing whatever the hell I feel like. Yeah, so thank you all for coming, and we will.
One thing I want to point out about the CSM summit, and someone brought this to my attention just a little bit ago, and I forgot about it. The picture that was taken of all the CSM together, apparently Aerith has taken pictures with the CSM before, and every time he's smiling, this is the first one he's taken where he's not smiling. It's the only picture you see of Aerith of him not smiling and happy. So that, a lot of people look at that and go, what the fuck? What did he just go through to come out of a meeting and not be smiling when he always smiles in the pictures? I'm not saying anything out of that, but that's what I'm hearing. So I linked it in chat earlier.
I think you might be
read into it.
I think that might be.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, we could just take the statements that the CSM members have said here rather than needing to.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, we gotta go. Bye.
Yep. Cheers.
See you guys. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Oh.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen.